Well, good morning. My name is Roger Ballard. I'm proud to be CEO of Nuvision Credit Union, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for this webcast. I'm proud to be able to provide our members with access to firsthand information and insights about the current housing market and the impact of COVID-19. Certainly, this crisis has provided a lot of uncertainty that is concerning, and during this uncertain time, we here at Nuvision, we feel like as a leading credit union, we've got a duty to help our members be better informed so that they have the information that you need to make the best financial decisions for both you and your family. And I'm thrilled to welcome our expert speaker, Stephen Thomas. Stephen is the founder of Reports on Housing, and he's been providing expert housing market insights since 2004. His reports are widely quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Fortune, Bloomberg, and many other publications. And Stephen's a local Orange County guy here in California with great insights on the marketplace, and we're honored to have him here with us today. And fun fact, I thought I had a large family with 5 kids. Stephen's got me beat by plenty. He's a proud father of 9 children. And so I'm guessing this whole balancing of working from home that some of us are doing with the family, he's going to have some great insights to share. Stephen, welcome.
Hey, how are you doing? Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's been, we've really enjoyed the time with the kids. I do have 9 kids. Here, I only have 5 underneath the roof right now. I've got one at Washington State University. He's got finals next week and he graduates. He's a senior. I also have another one that's going to Washington State University freshman. However, he is living with my my in-laws because my father-in-law has a pizza place and he works for them. And we have hunkered down. We have definitely isolated ourselves because we have some asthma and some other conditions like that. So we've got to be extremely careful. And whether we like it or not, we are hunkering down as a family until June 1st. So we made that decision, but we're enjoying it. We were in Wisconsin last summer, 3 weeks at a lake house, and this has that same kind of feel where we go on walks in the morning, 8 o'clock, 8:30. We don't run into as many people because there's a lot more people now walking around come the afternoon. And we've played games. We've done quite a bit as a family. It's been really fun. And it's kind of a slower pace the way Wisconsin is. However, not as much for me because I'm a housing economist and what's coming down the pike is just, I'm just gobbling up information like crazy. It's been a whirlwind tour, but we've really enjoyed it as a family. And it's something that we're going to draw from and maybe implement down the road some of the things we've learned along the way.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's a great example of how even in difficult situations, we can all find some silver linings. And it sounds like you're certainly doing that very effectively, Stephen, with your family and making some great memories during what otherwise is a challenging time. So that's fantastic. We're so thrilled to have you with us. And we also have another guest joining us that were really not a guest to me because he's leading up our mortgage lending team here at Nuvision. His name is Mike Sternquist, and he's going to be here with us today to help answer any questions the audience may have a little later about any of our mortgage lending products and services. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Roger. Thank you for the invite. It's great to be here.
Well, we're thrilled you're here along with Stephen. As I alluded to, we will have time for question and answers that people can submit using the platform here on Zoom, but we'll do that after some initial questions and comments between primarily Stephen and I, and hopefully some help from Michael. So with that, why don't we go ahead and, if it's okay, Stephen, dive into some of these questions here. So one of the things I think, you've got so much expertise, and I know you monitor through your reports many indicators in the housing market. And when you look at, in past economic corrections, one of the things we know is that home sellers face some challenges. So in terms of the data indicators you're looking at now, in terms of the similar scenarios, are we dealing with similar scenarios where sellers could be seeing some pricing challenges brought on by COVID-19? Or what are you seeing there?
Yeah, I'm not seeing the pricing challenges because we have a lot less supply right now. And let me go ahead and share my screen and explain kind of what's going on.
Great.
And you will see that the Southern California housing supply, it's been a supply problem. And we've had this supply problem for quite some time. It's actually, since we've been recovering the supply of homes, and this shows you the last 5 years, compared to 2007 and prior, 2006, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 2001, we were placing on about 350,000 homes on the market every single year in Southern California. And you can see since 2014, we've placed a lot fewer homes on the market across the board, and about the same number. So we're not placing as many homes on the market, but we did see a little bit of a spike at the end of 2018 and start of 2019. That was last year. But what happened? It was 5% interest rates happened. And we found out that we were very, very interest rate sensitive. And once you started bumping above 4.5%, that's where things really start to slow down. It all comes down to affordability. And I've done lots of affordability analysis to show how interest rate sensitive we are once we get about 4.5. So there was a real demand problem. Her lemonade was too expensive with high interest rates. So, but that's not the case in 2020. And actually in 2019, especially the second half, we got all the way down to 3.5%. And it was at 3.75% pretty much until we got towards the COVID-19. So we had interest rates in the threes, which were just the jet fuel that was propelling our market forward. And we have those interest rates to this day, and we still have an inventory problem. Not enough homes on the market. You can see this is where we are as of actually this morning. 30,765 homes on the market. That's up 2%, or 736 total homes in all of Southern California in the last 2 weeks, more than where we were 2 weeks ago. So that's not that big of an increase. As a matter of fact, we normally put more homes on the market during the springtime. During the months of April, May, and June, we're going up as far as inventory is concerned. And this 2-week period over the last 5 years, the average is up 2%. So we're right on par with where we are in the averages. And you can see where we're at right now. It's pretty darned low. And last year we were at 42,554. That was 38% more homes than where we are today. So there was a lot more homes last year at this time compared to where we are today. So we're still at a very low level. And if you look at this, LA County actually added 6% more homes on the market within the last 2 weeks. Orange County was up 5%. Riverside County was down 1%. San Bernardino was down 1%. And San Diego County was up 2%. So, and LA, I kind of give them a little bit of an asterisk next to them because they are having a little bit more of an issue with this COVID-19. They're number 6 out of all of the United States as far as counties are concerned, and all behind New York, and actually, higher than where New Jersey's at. So LA County is having the biggest issue, but they still have an interesting issue with demand. It's not an issue, it's actually a positive influence, and we'll get into that later. But COVID-19 is absolutely suppressing demand and supply. It is suppressing the number of homes that are coming on the market. When I look at the last 4 weeks period over the last 5 years and the averages of homes coming on the market, there's quite a few homes coming on the market. If you look at, but in LA County this year, in the last 4 weeks, down 51%. Orange County down 53%. So we're placing half the number of homes that typically come on the market. And in Orange County's case, even more than half. Riverside County down 47%, San Bernardino down 49%, and San Diego County down 42%. So across the board in all of Southern California, we're placing fewer homes on the market compared to last 5 years. And
well, that's, yeah, I mean, that's some really great, insights, shockingly, some of those percentages to me anyway, from an inventory standpoint. When you look at the demand side of housing, particularly here in Orange County and LA counties, what stands out to you? Anything particularly, from a macro, and then anything particularly interesting in the Orange County and LA area, since that's, I know, the focus of your monitoring?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm really happy to share this because I was predicting it, and I'm like the only. It's like the canary in a coal mine type of thing, where I'm the only one talking about these kind of things that are coming up, and I'm going, gosh, I hope I'm right. But certainly, because I know what how the market's going to behave. I've been doing this since 1991. I was actually a real estate agent and broker for many years as well, and so I understand what's going on in the marketplace and kind of the mindset of where buyers would be at and where sellers would be at right now. And we do have a demand problem, but it's a different kind of demand problem now. It's not interest rate driven. It's COVID-19 is suppressing demand. But you can see this is where we are as of this morning and taking a look at it. And I knew this is where we were going to go. Today we're at 8,806. It's up 7%. We're 554 extra pending sales in the last 2 weeks. And my demand figure is the last 30 days velocity of pending sales. So I'm looking at contracts between buyers and sellers that they put it together. That's how I'm couching demand. And if you look at this, we're actually seeing this little check mark where we're starting to go up. And I was talking about that there was a free fall, and that was from March 19th to April 16th, where we dropped 52%. That was in COVID-19. And the way my supply thing, my demand works is I'm looking at the last 30 days. Well, when I'm looking at last 30 days, there were weeks in there where it was still good. Well, that last demand reading from 2 weeks ago encompassed all of being locked down, so it was inherent demand. And from that point, we actually are starting to see people are moving along. And I'm talking to a lot of real estate agents and brokers out there, and they're telling me there's a lot more movement. There's more brokers that are out there. Agents are figuring out how to work in this environment. So it's definitely been a change. Last year, we were at 16,828. That was up 91%. From where we are today. So there was a lot more demand last year compared to this year. But 2 weeks ago, it was more than double. That's what 109% means, more than double. So it's going to start to diminish last year versus this year. We're going to see that diminish over time. And as we unlock, we're going to see this thing go up. And we're already starting to see it. We're not even unlocked, and we're starting to see demand going up. And there's new protocols for showing houses with masks and gloves and doing everything electronically. So they're figuring out how to maneuver in this marketplace now that we've been doing it for quite some time. And in LA County, demand is up 1%. And like I said, that has everything to do with COVID-19, and yet their demand is still going up from 2 weeks ago, but they're still at inherent demand levels. They can't quite rise until they get a grip on COVID-19 completely. Orange County's up 7% in the last 2 weeks. Riverside County's up 14%. San Bernardino's up 9%, and San Diego County's up 6%. So all interesting, all good, positive news. So we've hit that bottom and we're starting to come off of it right now.
Yeah, I agree that, I think for some people, that positive news is certainly welcomed and maybe even counterintuitive. So it's really interesting data. So, I wonder if we could transition now to something that's always important to, especially the sellers and buyers, is housing prices. And, for those of us like yourself who've been in Southern California quite some time, we do remember the Great Recession from a little over 10 years ago, and the impact that had on housing prices for quite some time. What do you see as the impact on the pricing, given in this time period, given the COVID-19 situation? Both now and maybe even kind of what are you seeing for the next 12 months in terms of trends around housing pricing?
Yeah. So. That's an interesting question, and it's so funny because we do remember, Roger, the last recession, and everybody remembers that last recession. So everybody thinks that this recession, because this is a recession, I refer to it as a pandession because it's not the normal kind of recession. It was brought on by a pandemic, and I was sitting there with my wife going, I don't like the name recession for this because it's not one industry that brought it down. I like the term pandession, so I came up with pandession. So you feel free to use it because it's a forced stoppage. We've never done anything like this where we said, economy, let's stop this thing. So we have nothing to draw on from prior, and we're in uncharted waters, and we're going to throw all kinds of money at this to fix it. And so will this be the Great Recession? That's the big question, but it absolutely is not, because it's not the same circumstances. And I'm bringing up this one. I do not have it for all of Southern California because my data for Southern California only goes all the way back to 2012, even though I've been just doing the reports for all of the rest of Southern California for 1 year. So I've only been doing those for 1 year. I was doing the data since 2012. I wish I was doing it prior. I only know where the data points are for 2007 in those macro areas because I wanted to know what in the world was going on for one given point. And I know it was very similar. It looked just like this chart. And here's where we are as of today. That's Orange County. This was 2006. So today they're at about, in Orange County, 4,500 homes on the market. In 2006, 16,000 homes on the market. In 2007, 18,000 homes on the market. And in 2008, almost 16,000 again. So you can see way different than where we are today. And you have a lot of blue space. That's going, that green jaggedy line at the bottom is demand. And the blue is active listing inventory. So here we are, we have a lot of blue space. We have a lot of competition. When you have that much competition over where that tiny amount of demand, it totally favors buyers. And that's why we had a collapse in prices. As a matter of fact, we had an expected market time in Orange County of over 400 days. And for all of Southern California, it was between 300 and 450 day expected market time. That tilts heavily in favor of buyers. And that's what we saw in pricing. And this was 2012 and 2013. That's where the inventory is sitting right on top of demand. You couldn't even put the for sale sign in on the lawn before you had offers on the property. That's the way 2012 and 2013 were. And then you get to today, and there's blue space, a lot more blue space than we're accustomed to. But it's, if you see 2019, it's not even as bad as 2019 right now. And these are the numbers I'm looking at. So I'm sitting there going, hello, it's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. It's not totally in favor of buyers, like so many people talk about. They say value should come down 10, 20, 30%. I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know where they're coming up with these numbers. And they're just because they're remembering the Great Recession and the burn from it. But you can see where they're right is we have inherent demand. We have demand, that's that black line across, right where we were during the Great Recession. The difference is if you draw a line across from where we had supply, there's a big difference. Supply, there was a lot more supply than where we are today. So when you have that much supply, and I remember every single street had 2 or 3 for sale signs back in 2006 through 2008. It just seemed like everything was for sale. There was 4 times as many homes on the market compared to where we are today. So yes, for every 1 sign that you see today, there are 4 times as many right now. So that's why every single street had homes that are on market. And right now you have to understand supply and demand. At the very beginning of this year, we had very little supply and very high demand juiced by interest rates. And it made it heavily in favor of sellers. As a matter of fact, we had quite a bit of appreciation from the second half of December, January, February, and first half of March. That was pretty spectacular. And that's because of the mismatch. Now we have very, very low supply and very, very low demand, which kind of balances things out. It doesn't favor buyers like it did during prior to the Great Recession. So really it's this showdown between supply and demand. They're equal and opposite forces where we have a very low demand, but we have a very low supply, and they're kind of duking it out. That's what's going on right now. So the Great Recession, no, that's not what's going on. Instead, and I like to show it by this, the expected market time. That is, if you place your home on the market today, when are you going to go into escrow? And I'll blow that up for everybody to see. That is where we are right now today. You can see we spiked way up. So the expected market time is a lot higher than where we were prior. And if I draw lines across, below this 60 is a hot seller's market. You can see that at the very right-hand side, there was a little space where we got into a very hot seller's market for all of Southern California is that really short period of time for a couple of months. And then we spiked up because of COVID-19. But you can see it's actually starting to come down a little bit, and we'll show that in the next slide. But 90, from 60 to 90 is a slight seller's market. That's between those 2 green lines. And that's where it favors sellers, but we don't have much appreciation. They get called more of the shots, but we're not appreciating as much. And in between that 90 and 120 is what I refer to as a balanced market. And that's where we are today. That's where it doesn't favor sellers and it doesn't favor buyers. It's kind of like you got to get along and figure things out. It takes a little longer to sell a home, so sellers are more interested in working with you, but it's not such a lopsided affair where they need to give away price. So above 120 is actually a buyer's market. And above 120 to 150 is actually slight buyer's market. The opposite of a slight seller's market. Buyers get to call more of the shots, not a lot of happening in falling prices. You have to get above 150 and you have to stay there for about 3 to 6 months before we start seeing prices come down. And we're not even close to that number. Instead, we're here for Southern California. And in Southern California today, the expected market time is 105 days, or that's all of Southern California. SoCal last year was at 76 days. So you can see better, that's the orange line, better than where we are today. Now, but if I show you LA County, they're 114 days. That's up 5 from 2 weeks ago. Orange County is at 118. That's down 3. Orange County is actually in a slight buyer's market for a minute, for about a week. And now they've come down because we've seen this juice in demand. So Orange County is now back in balanced, and it will remain in balance. Riverside County is at 113 days. That was down 17 in 2 weeks, 17 days. And they were too in slight buyer's market territory, but they've really fallen quite a bit. San Bernardino County is at 93 days. That is amazing. They're making their way to a slight seller's market, and that's where San Diego is. They're at 85 days. They're down 3. They're in a slight seller's market. I mean, 85 days isn't rip roaring, but it's better than some of the other counties. And so for those people that are holding out for a buyer's market, they get to totally take their time and they get to shave off price. That's not happening. Instead, we have that balanced market where there's this equilibrium in the market right now. So here's why it's not the Great Recession. We look at today's housing versus the Great Recession housing, and we had a low inventory supply of homes. We have nearly 4 times as many homes on the market compared to 2020 during the Great Recession. Low demand today, low demand in the Great Recession. That's the only real common denominator. And that's why they think that we should be shaving prices. Showdown between low supply and low demand versus way too much supply versus low demand favoring buyers. So that is why they had a buyer's market. And the large down payments were a part of us putting together this housing market that we're presently in versus low, no down payments, easy qualified stuff. High qualification for loans, that's where we are in today's, and that's where we have been during this expansion. And Great Recession housing, anybody could get a loan. A couple dogs got loans, dead people got loans. So today's housing, plenty of nested equity versus limited equity in Great Recession. And today's housing, very few cash out refinances. Great Recession housing, flood of cash out refinances. Large percentage who own free and clear today versus subprime and pick a payment loans. That really limited the amount of people that invited people to overpay for things, and there wasn't as much cash in the system. And there was also fraudulent lending going on back there. The big giant subprime towers in Irvine that collapsed, and in Florida as well. Ground zero was Irvine, and it was also in Florida, and anybody could get a loan back then. So that is the difference of where we are today versus the Great Recession.
Well, Stephen, you nailed that. You provided so many great points of contrast that are, so factual based and just spot on. You really painted that picture really, really clearly. So great job, and thank you for that. You know, one of the things we know with all consumers, and we think about our members, is that when they are looking maybe to move or purchase their first home, whatever it may be, they're looking at different price points. And as I recall from some of the data that I've seen over time, some of the data around the different price points are different, from a pricing standpoint, time in the market, and those type things. What are you seeing in the different price points? And furthermore, and I can come back to this if you'd like, but just is there any difference? There's also not only different price points that some of our members are looking at, but also maybe related to those price points or just preferences, is different types of units. You know, maybe it's a condo or single family detached or townhomes or whatever that may be. So just trying to get a little bit more granular insights around pricing points and types of units in the markets and what you're seeing from the data.
Yeah, so very interesting. Let me share that screen again. And yeah, so there is definitely differences in price points and versus attached and detached. And I kind of get into this with LA and Orange County, and I'll rip through the rest of them. And I have to update these slides. So these slides are from 2 weeks ago. There's no way I could have done it all from this morning and getting this prepared, because these are actually going to get a little bit better. So I look at this as like kind of like a menu. And I've been using it as a menu. The last report that I put together will actually show this particular slide. And if you see it in Los Angeles County, the below 500,000 detached, of course, is really strong, but still below 5 to 750 is still a slight seller's market. And then once you get to 751 million, it's more balanced. Once you get above $1 million, that's where things really started to slow down. And what I'm seeing is when you start getting up in the upper ranges, luxury, because they got hit so hard with equity markets, which the equity markets are starting to do a little bit better, but I don't think it's going to, where 401ks became 201ks, and now they're going to start to slowly creep up to 301ks, and then they'll get back to 401ks like they always do, right? But in the interim, when that initially happens, it's such a shock in the system, the ranges that it affects the most are the upper ranges. So that's where we're seeing the slowdown, where when you get to 3 million to 4 million, you see 1,000-day expected market time. My advice to anybody is, once you get above that threshold of about 500 days or higher, is just don't go on the market. There's still some transactions that take place, but they're in the single digits for those price ranges. So, and you have a lot of people you're competing against. It makes it very, very difficult to transact in that. And you end up, it's just you having people traipse through your home. I would wait to see how this evolves over the year. As far as predicting it for the luxury market, I think they're going to be impacted for the better part of 2020. And then when 2021 comes along, things will be a little bit better in the luxury ranges. And for attached, you can see below 500,000, that's where things get moving. 5 to 750, it's kind of balanced. And then above 750 is where things slow down. And then for Orange County, you got that same, it's 0 to $1 million, which is really strong. And you can see from 2 weeks ago, we were in a slight buyer's market. That's the 123 days for all of detached. That has since changed. And I knew it was going to change based upon all the feedback that I was receiving, and the numbers started to reflect that. But above $1 million, you just have to know your price range. So if you have a property at $650,000 that's detached, or $700,000 detached, you're still in a really good price range. And that's what people are not seeing. They think that it's impacted everywhere. Well, it's above the $1 million, once again, in Orange County, that has been impacted and slowed down. Because I can tell you, at 169 days, that's way different than where we were at the very start of the year, when we had an expected market time where it even got into a below 60 for a while, between 1 and 1.25 million. So below 60 days. So that's quite a transition from where it was to where it is right now. And all of OC for attached, you can see kind of balanced. And then 0 to 250, there's not that many. Those are the 1 bedrooms. Those are the studios. But 250 to 500,000, it's still a slight seller's market. Still 85 days. I've had some agents go, I've been in the market for 30 days and I haven't had that many showings and no offers. And I'm telling them, it says 85-day expected market time. Your expectation should be 85 days before you place it in escrow. You still got to wait. Be patient. This is no longer fishing with nets. That's what we were doing when you get below 60 days market time. You get lots of people through your open houses. You cast out your net and you collect a lot of fish, and they all bid against each other, and one winner out of 10 people. I heard of one property that had 29 offers on December 26th in Cyprus. That's a little bit of an imbalance. So it's no longer that way. It's now you put the right price, you get your house all ready, you have it visually showing well on the internet with photos and virtual tours, and then you cast your line out in the water, and now you wait. You be patient. That's where we are today. And you can see this is San Diego. I do this for all the different markets. I'm just going to roll through these just to, behaving differently from price range to price range. The upper price ranges is where it's getting hurt the most. And speaking of luxury in LA County at 1.5, I am interested to see how much this has changed with demand going up 7% in the last 2 weeks, but the expected market time above 1.5 million, which is the threshold for luxury, top 10% of the marketplace in LA, it's at 1,077 days. It was at 155 six weeks ago. And Orange County, 1.25 and above, is at 379 days. It was 121 6 weeks ago. Riverside County is 650,000 plus. They're at 385. They're at 166 5 weeks ago. I do their numbers in Riverside and San Bernardino on alternating weeks from San Diego, LA, and Orange County. San Bernardino County is at 650,000 plus. They're at 233. They were at 125 5 weeks ago. And San Diego's at 412, and they were at 118 6 weeks ago. So you get the flavor. Luxury's kind of slowed down right now, and so you just have to know what the marketplace is, and that's what I'm trying to provide is some clear expectations for where the market is. And so as far as people should be focusing on, and we'll get into this in a moment, but on payments and stuff like that. So, oops,
well, it sounds like, I mean, the data you break out is really helpful, especially depending on the price point that, as say, some of our members who might be selling, I think, you provided some great data to really be rational about kind of what to expect from the data, follow the data, and how to be rational about what the timeframes, could look like, at least based on average. So that's really helpful information, Stephen. Thanks so much. I've just got a couple more questions before we open it up for Q&A. And, you've inherently touched upon this, but I want to ask directly, what does the current market trends look like for affordability? Can more people afford homes, or not so much? Where do you see that?
Yeah, very interesting. So also very interesting. Great question. The home affordability looks a little bit like this. We're in a low mortgage rate environment, and it's been going down that way since 1981. We've come down from a really high level of 18% all the way down to where we are today. And this is where they've gone internationally, and that's where they'll remain. And I want everybody to, this is my goal in life, is to have everybody approach housing like they do their car, where they really worry about every single monthly payment. They worry about $15 per month, and they're going to be paying this thing for 60 days, versus they don't really spend as much time worrying, talking about price with their mortgage professional. And yet they're going to be paying that for not 60 days, for 60 months, for 360 months. So it always baffled me that we spend so much time on our car, but we don't spend as much time focusing in on what can we do? Maybe we can get somebody to pay points, or the sellers to pay points. And what does that do? And low mortgage rate environment looks like this. We have 5% interest rates back in November versus that's about 3.25%. Rates are all over the board, by the way, and I want to give out a lot of love to lenders, because you guys are dealing with a system that's inherently not quite functioning the way it normally does. So your rates are constantly in flux, and the way that I kind of explain it to a lot of people is it's kind of like a little bit broken underneath the hood. The U.S. Treasury needs to help out in mortgage servicing, and there's a lot of different things behind. Just know that, give a lot of love to the lenders, because they're dealing with kind of a situation that's very difficult to operate in. But so understand that if I'm showing 3.25, these are just sheer examples, and this is where we're going to be on the other side of this when things get fixed more. The U.S. Treasury steps in a little bit more than they have, because the Federal Reserve definitely has, U.S. Treasury has some, needs to do a few more things. But you can see, I'm trying to illustrate where interest rates were before, where they are today, and what the savings is. And this is just compared to 5%. Remember, we've had interest rates way higher than this prior to November. And you can see, for a $500,000 mortgage, you're looking at saving on an annual basis $6,000 per year. That's a lot of money that you're saving per year. And so you wonder why there's so many buyers that are out there eager to purchase. And it's because interest rates are so low. It really makes it more affordable. $700,000 mortgages, $8,500 per year. That's 42 grand in 5 years. That's a lot of money. That's a nice vacation. So that's the kind of savings we're looking at. So, and then as far as interest rates impact on affordability, and I was looking at a $3,000 per month desired jumbo, let's say, mortgage payment. And let's hypothetically say that they can get one that goes all the way down to 3.25%. But I'm just showing you this because we know that when they were at 5%, they were even higher for jumbo. But for this example, you can see that their buying power goes way up. When interest rates are 5%, you're looking at a $700,000 house, just shy of that. And as interest rates fell, look at where they are today. And could they even get down to 3%? They possibly could if everything was fixed. And if they did, you're looking at going from $700,000 to $890,000 home. And what have you done? Nothing. These are great rates. That's the difference. Is great rates just impacts affordability, and it makes it more affordable, which is what a lot of people are missing. They're comparing this to the Great Recession. We had interest rates at 6.35% prior to the Great Recession. And the same examples, at $875,000 purchase price, $700,000 would be your mortgage if you put 20% down. You're looking at a difference of $1,310 per month from the Great Recession. That's close to $16,000 per year. That's a lot of money that you're saving. So to compare today's environment to prior to the Great Recession, that's another thing. Not only do we have the mismatch of inventory, we have the mismatch of interest rates. Interest rates are way lower today than where they were at, than where they are at today. And speaking of that, I know that the non-QM stuff has gone away, and I've heard that the jumbo loan mortgage market is definitely diminished, and some lenders aren't doing it. I wanted to ask you guys, Michael specifically, what are you seeing in the jumbo loan arena?
Michael, yeah, Stephen's talking about giving some love to our lenders. We want to give you some love. What do you think?
Well, it's an absolute great question, Steve and Roger. It's amazing. I get that question almost daily. Are you still lending to the jumbo market? And I think that's coming around because a lot of what you're hearing in the news right now, we're seeing, some major lenders pulling back and exiting that piece of the market. And there's still a demand, as you just pointed out to us. There's a great demand for jumbo product, and I'm happy to report that yes, we're lending in the jumbo space. We've got great programs. We're lending, we're doing refinances, and we're doing purchases. So to answer the question, we are definitely in that market, and we're ready to help you. If you're in the market,
hey, Michael, I wonder for those who may not, know some of these definitions. We talk about a jumbo loan. Can you just give a little bit of definition about what that is?
Yeah, there's a conventional loan, there is a high balance loan, and then there's a jumbo loan. And that will vary by county that you live in. So, there's certain limitations, and it's based on the loan amount, based on counties. So that's probably the best way I could describe it for you. Now, our jumbo product that we have goes up to $2 million. So we will lend up to $2 million on our jumbo product.
Great. Yeah, and I suspect that it's not uncommon, or maybe to say it differently, it's fairly common, particularly looking at some of the data that Stephen just provided, that a Southern California mortgage, many of them are considered jumbos. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. That is accurate. Every year they look at that and they make an adjustment based on the current market environment to where they raise that jumbo line up and down every year, and we just recently seen a modification this year to that.
Great. That's really helpful, Michael. I'm glad we're there to help our members who need it. I want to wrap up our at least formal Q&A before we go to our members' questions. Back to Stephen, if it's okay. Stephen, we'd like to, kind of understand what your crystal ball is. Where do we go from here? What do you see? What do you see coming?
Yeah, I do have my ideas. and I would love to share them with you. So where do we go from here is the coronavirus is definitely going to continue to impact supply and will damper demand. And we're going to watch that, because as we get a better hold on it, we start to unlock things that it's going to diminish it for 2020. But I think that we're going to start to see things move along, and there's a new way of doing business on the other side. Everybody says new way, and I know that is the going phrase, but there definitely is a new way of doing things, and we are ramping up for that. So I did have this as the market will move to a balanced or slight buyer's market. As you can see, this slide, I could have updated this right now, that we're no longer going into that slight buyer's market territory. We're staying in balance. So it's not a slight buyer's market, it's a balanced market. So understand that. There's this tug of war that's going on right now, and it's not between buyers and sellers, which typically takes place in a balanced market. Instead, the real tug of war that's going on is a tug of war between buyers' irrational thinking and market realities. And what I mean by that is they don't understand. There are even real estate agents that were telling me that values are going to drop 10% in the next 90 days. And I was sitting there thinking, how? The numbers don't show that. And that's all I do, is I drive the numbers all day long. So that's the irrational thinking that's going on. They think it needs to behave like the Great Recession, and yet it's not. We are not in the same. There's going to be industries that are going to get hit by this. Restaurant industry is one of them. There is going to be changes down the road. Maybe we don't fly as much. So there's going to be some economic fallout from that. And there's unemployed, and some of that will seep its way into the real estate market, but not at the expense of bringing down the housing market. So we need to understand that. And in 365 days, people have a real hard time understanding this. California's housing is projected to appreciate 3% in 2020. I did have it at 5%. I changed it to 3%. The reason for that is because we've already had mass appreciation during that first quarter. And yes, we can maybe stay even or come down slightly for the rest of the year, but year over year, we're going to take a look at it, and it's still going to be positive, and people are going to be scratching their heads. How can that be? And that's because we're looking at it over 365 days. And the mortgage interest rate environment is the fuel that is going to drive this thing forward. It's instigating demand, and it will help us recover quickly. And then the luxury market, it's going to be sluggish in 2021, to just understand that. That is the way it is all boiling. It is all coming forward based upon all the numbers I'm seeing for the rest of 2020. And in 2021, things should start to look better as the equity markets and people's 401ks are restored. So that's what I'm seeing out there.
Great, Stephen, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Are you up for a few questions from our members?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, well, let's see if I can take a look. We've got a few questions, and I need to take a look at them here. So, and some of these came in earlier, so there's a chance we may have answered some, but maybe if we haven't, if we already do, maybe you can just quickly reinforce the point. So what's the number, with the number of job losses, how will that impact the market? Do you believe a fallout will occur in the coming months? You may have inherently answered that, but maybe you could just speak to, do you see job losses correlating to any impact on housing prices?
There will be an impact, but it's not as great as what some people might think. You have to understand that the job losses, they are thinking it's between 80 and 85% that fall in the lowest income bracket. And that typically is not homeowners, it's a lot of renters. It impacts people at restaurants, it impacts people that work at Disneyland, that work at ballparks, that help these servers at restaurants. My daughter's boyfriend is a waiter. He's not currently working right now. Those are a lot of jobs will be furloughed. There will be some restaurants that don't make it during this time period. So there will be some economic fallout. And we did get the number reading as of this morning. And so now there are close to 30 million people that are unemployed. So yes, that is a large number of people that are unemployed. Remember, this is a forced stoppage. So this is way different than anything we can compare to, because people are still trying to extrapolate from the Great Recession. And there were entire industries that dissolved during the Great Recession. One of them being subprime. I remember all the unemployed people that were from the lending side of things that were making things flow, and also construction. That was huge, and that thing just absolutely disappeared. So those are areas of the economy that where those jobs they just disappeared in a vacuum. This is not that situation. We are going to have economic fallout, but a lot of those are furloughed and they will be restored.
Those are some great points. This question, I'll invite you and or Michael here on this one. There's a question about mortgage rates and how those might be changing for the upcoming months. Will they go down, up, or stay about the same? Do we have any thoughts on that?
Interesting to hear what Michael has to say.
Well, my hope is they continue to stay very competitive. We've seen a very competitive interest rate market for this whole entire year. And the market, kind of corrects itself. It will bear what it wants to see. So my forecast and I have no crystal ball here, but I'm believing that through the end of the year, through the election, that we're going to continue to see these really great rates in the threes, the mid threes, and maybe for the foreseeable future after that. And with that, Steve, I'd like to hear what you think.
Yeah, I actually think that we can see when the Treasury steps up, because we need to see the servicers made whole, because there are going to be some servicers that go belly up if they don't step in. And that's just a side of the market that when I start talking about that to audiences, it doesn't make sense because it'll get into the weeds. Just know that the Treasury needs to step up and help out, and they're trying to say the market should take care of itself. This is not a normal situation. Step up and cure these people, these companies that need a window to go to help mitigate what's coming forward. And that is through all these forbearances. And because that part of the system's broken, and then there's a lot of other parts of the system that they're trying to fix, as we see those fixes take place, we'll see the interest rates start to slowly fall. As we saw when the Fed announced that they were getting into the secondary market again, and they were buying tranches of loans again, their mortgage-backed securities, what we saw was interest rates float down because they were spiking. And then they came back down, but now they're kind of staying where they're at right now. And they can come down further because where the 10-year Treasury is right now, guess where interest rates should be right now? About 2 3/4%. And they're not. That gap is the biggest gap we've seen in a long time between the 10-year Treasury and where they are today. And that's because of everything I'm talking about underneath the hood. And for all those people holding out for refinances, coming all the way down to where the mortgage purchase interest rates are at, way different. They don't want to bring it all the way down to 3% because we have such a mass influx. We don't have the capacity, and there will be a lot of lenders and everybody else that loses a lot of money because of early payoffs. So they're going to slowly bring that dial down. And that's why you're seeing in refinances more points and things like that. You could probably speak to that more than I can, but we're going to see this slow fall of rates, I think, over the rest of the next 3 to 6 months.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Stephen. Great insights. Michael, I know you spoke earlier. I've got a question here about Nuvision's mortgage lending. I know you spoke especially about jumbos, but the question is Nuvision still providing mortgage funding for new homes?
That's another great question, and I hear that more and more every day, it seems like. But the answer to that is yes, we absolutely are. A large percentage of our mix of business is financing for new homes. And I talk to real estate agents every day, and they're asking that too. And because some of their lenders are slowing down, their turn times are a little bit slower. And our turn times have stayed really true to what they were prior to going into this. So our turn times are very good. That keeps us very competitive in the purchase money market.
Great, thank you, Michael. Stephen, I think this is probably for you. It's relating back to the 2007, 2008 time period and the inventory data that you shared, and wondering if that was related to foreclosures or organic listing. And I'll just complete this kind of a second part here. If it wasn't due to foreclosures, what drove such a high amount of inventory in those years? Again, referencing 2007, 2008.
Well, if you remember back to that slide, I actually talked about how 2006 we hit 16,000 homes as well. So that was prior to the short sale foreclosures entering the market. They became a large percentage of the market starting towards the end of 2007. But we still had way too many homes in the market in 2006, and that was the beginning of where people were tapped out in their homes. They were buying homes that they shouldn't have been purchasing. They were not qualifying for the loans that they were for the homes that they were purchasing because of lending standards being so easy to get a loan, and now it's so much more difficult. That after they closed escrow, they realized, gosh, how long can we do this? Well, there were a lot of people that were placing their homes in the market because they simply could not afford the home that they were living in.
Great. Well, and on a similar, again, this inventory note is, why is inventory so low today versus prior? Maybe you inherently got to that. I just didn't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, I've spoken on this before, and there really is a difference between now and prior decades. And the reason we're placing fewer homes in the market is because so many people got so burned during the Great Recession. We know somebody that got burned. And when I do these presentations, I have this slide of Will Ferrell. I think he was in GQ, where he was burnt from head to toe wearing a Speedo. And we remember those burns. Remember when we go to Hawaii and we apply sunscreen once and then we don't a second time, and then we go take a shower and cold water feels like it's scalding us? That's that burn you remember, and now you're going to be very careful the next time you go to Hawaii and the subsequent days that you go to the beach. And that's kind of what's going on right now. Is we're no longer utilizing our houses as piggy banks, and we're no longer looking at speculating and moving and moving and moving and moving. The people are moving at twice for all of Southern California. It's a 20 years that they're living in their home on average, versus where it was prior, that was 10 years on average. So we've doubled the amount of time now that we're staying in our houses, and we're looking at fixing them up and keeping these houses as close to new as possible. And when they start to look old, we're not necessarily moving, we're actually making our own living spaces a lot better to live in. So there's been a change in our mental psyche because of the Great Recession.
Yes, well said about remembering those burns. We all certainly do. Great analogy there. So this is another question regarding more rates and rates forecasting, and when rates will, potentially go up, and what the effect on housing. And this one is more around, I'll read part of it here, just trying to paraphrasing so I can get through a few questions before we wrap up. With the Fed, Federal Reserve, I've described it as they're all in terms of supporting the U.S. economy. And so basically with them printing so much money and it's to support the economy, there's some concern that this member has raised around inflation. And it's going to eventually, it would seem, cause inflation to go up. So I know you're not necessarily an economist, although I think you told me you talked to a lot of them, Stephen. So what's your crystal ball saying on this one about, rates and inflation and just all the deficit spending we're doing right now?
Yeah, well, I have that quantitative economics decision science degree, and I just eat up economics like crazy. And I actually think that this is a thesis that has already proven that it's not true. That we're deficit spending as is and printing money, as are all countries, and they've always said that it should increase inflation. We've already showed. I've been listening to people bring this up for the past couple decades, and it hasn't changed inflation. Inflation has been in check for such a long period of time, and I really don't think even all the spending is going to. It's just a thesis that does not bear out, and I don't see that impact on inflation, even though we're printing money. We're all collectively as a society tied to everybody else's countries, and we all are holding each other's debt. And I do not see the movement in inflation, and it has not been a concern of mine. And somebody that I follow a good economist, has done a big thesis on this, and I follow him all the time, and I tend to agree with his thesis. And it comes down to charts, stats, data, and following everything. And but printing money has not borne out that holding on to these big deficits is going to create inflation. It hasn't reared its head, and I don't think that this is going to be the case where it tips it into that section. I really don't.
Great, Stephen. I got a number of questions. I'm kind of watching our time here, so let's see how many we can get through. Some we've answered, they were rate related, so I think we've spent quite a bit of time on that. This one, I think a lot of our members might, who are in a similar situation might run into, and I'm remembering kind of your supply and demand slide here. The question is, how long should I wait to purchase since it's not a buyer's market right now? Kind of a timing question if you're a buyer.
Yeah, I think the overall housing market is coming from a place of strength. I've used it's not going to be a buyer's market. It's not going to be a buyer's market anytime soon. So if it was me and I was a buyer, I'd take advantage of this lockdown and not have to bump into other people because it's more balanced than anything else. I actually really, honestly, that's how I feel, because I look at the marketplace as the savings and loan scandals of the 1990s that led to a recession. The way that we sold paper and did subprime and all that stuff led to the Great Recession, which was huge. And the way I look at those markets under the stability of the housing market was that Great Recession market was like for the Three Little Pigs, it was the house made out of hay. And for the easy to blow down, the savings and loan scandal was a house made out of sticks. Our current housing fundamentals is made out of brick. And it's going to be extremely hard to blow down. So those people that are trying to time the market, right now is a good time. Interest rates are low, and you're not going to be bumping into other people. On the other side of this, there's going to be more buyers. You're going to be bumping into people, and you're going to be dealing with multiple offers again. And it's going to come. And I'm talking about it now, and I will continue to talk about it because I've seen it in the data, I've seen it in the numbers, and that's what I'm trying to bring is a proper perspective, proper expectations to the market.
Great, Stephen. One of your comments you just made reminds me of something in this question. The question is, do you think there will be an influx in supply once, COVID-19 resides and people can move about more than they are now, and people feel more comfortable to make moves? Do you think that's going to, drive an influx of supply?
Yeah, I've heard this argument, a lot of pent up supply, and then people that are really hurting. It's going to be one of those things where it's going to be the slow dial, the dimmer switch. So you're not going to notice it. There's not going to be a spike. Remember, this pool of homeowners has a lot of vested equity. So with them having vested equity, they have time. And then remember, there's for the some that are taking forbearance, which the forbearance now they've redefined, and now it's deferral. So it's going to be a deferral of their payments. They're going to stick to that payment. They're going to work it out with their lender, and they're going to stick it on the back end of these loans. They would have to pay that deferred amount if they went and sold down the road as well. So a lot of these people are going to be made whole. Remember, be made whole. Remember that we have actually we're trying to bridge the gap from where we are at the beginning of this COVID-19 to the other side of this, and that's where forbearance came in. And there's a lot of these jobs have been furloughed. A lot of the jobs are going to come back. Maybe not at the same numbers, and we're going to be dealing with unemployment still sticking a little bit higher, and then it'll eventually come down. They said it'll probably take a couple of years to get where we were at the beginning of this year, but understand it's going to be more of a dial. It's not going to be a light switch where all of a sudden a whole bunch of people come on the market. That's the argument, and that people are making, and I don't buy it.
Great, Stephen. So I think we've got still a number of questions, and we're pretty much at time. So with your help, Stephen, what I'm thinking is we'll try to do just two more. I see two more that might, be topics we haven't maybe necessarily dived into. If we could get to those briefly, and then I might ask Stephen if you'd be willing to maybe help us after the session look at the questions we didn't get to, and provide a response maybe on our website or something, so at least we can provide some information later, but
Sure.
Still stay close to the time so I don't get in trouble with my team here. And I want to be respectful of your time and Mike's as well. So here's what the first of the two last questions we'll take. And you alluded to this some, but I understand the reason for this question. The question is, will sellers start to reduce prices in those higher range price points you were talking about, especially with stricter mortgage rules. You talked about down payments and such in your points, and mass, the unemployment being so high, reducing qualified demand. At least, there's some assumptions in that question, but what do you think? Especially at those higher ends.
Yeah.
Are they going to be more motivated?
Yeah, the higher ranges, it always has been this case of there's not a lot of desperation in the upper end. I mean, there could be some, and then we could see some pushback in pricing, but we're not going to see to the extent of Great Recession levels. We're going to see, they could be stripped 5%. Let's say if you're at $2 million, you might have to take off $100,000 off of your price in order to motivate somebody to purchase it. The problem is so many people start off stretching the wrong direction. They overprice to begin with, and they take a while to get down to their initial price. So my advice is to price it appropriately right out of the gate, given what your property looks like. I think I call it the fair market value. That's most important in those ranges. So there could be a little bit of give back, but on the other side of this, once everybody's made whole again and the economy is churning again, at that point, yes, I see that we're going to be made. They're going to be made whole again as well. So if you don't have to sell in the upper ranges, my advice is not to until things get better. And I'm watching that like a hawk. But for right now, currently the situation, I mean, if it's bumper to bumper traffic, do you want to get on that freeway, or do you just want to wait? That's kind of the analogy that I like to use in the upper end. So for those people that want to jump in and they have to get to someplace, well, then they might have to reduce a bit, but there's not going to be a lot of that takes place, because a lot of the upper end, their thinking is, well, I don't really have to sell. I just want to see if I can. And that's the mentality that we get in the upper ranges. Great
insight. So last question, I just picked this one because it's one of the topics that hasn't come up otherwise that I can recall anyway. And then we'll get to the other questions, after the session, we'll post something. So the question is, I think the whole COVID-19, will this impact investment properties? Anything different about investment properties versus, owner-occupied properties?
Well, I know from everything that I've read that the qualification terms for investment properties is a bit different on this side. Michael could probably speak to that. I understand that you have to have reserves based upon each unit. Is that correct, Michael?
Yes, that's one of the things that we're looking at, and there's a lot of discussion going on right now about the tightening of, the loan programs that are available. Maybe loan to values, less loan to value, meaning more down payment. So those discussions are currently going on. It's a fluid situation. We're going to continue to monitor it, and as we see the market change, we're going to change along with it. So that's the best I could answer it for right now. We still want to be in that market. We still will be in that market for the foreseeable future. But again, we're going to be cautious.
Yeah, and that's the caution is where I think that it makes it so that the buyer pool for investors all of a sudden shrunk. It's now, because a lot of them have to qualify in different standards. So yes, I can see those investment properties getting hit a little bit harder. People, I'm sure that it's in this in the questions and answers topics that people were bringing up, that we're seeing the commercial arena. Things are going to change in the commercial arena. We're all used to a new way of doing things right now. This is a new way of doing things, and it's not a bad way of getting communication out there. I'm going to tell you right now that that there will be some changes down the road as far as bricks and mortar are concerned. Long term, I'm bullish on investment properties, but they're going to be short term. I think that if you've got an investment property that you got to unload because you're got a dilemma, it's going to be that same scenario if you're getting on a very busy highway, a very busy freeway. It's bumper to bumper traffic, and if you want to be the one that actually sells, you're going to have to shave a little bit. So they're having the same deal as the luxury market. So I can see that's going to be an issue as well for the short term. So there will be some people that will be able to take advantage of that in the short term.
Well, great. Well, Michael, I want to thank you for joining us and helping provide Nuvision mortgage lending expertise. And Stephen, thank you so much for outstanding information to help our members better understand the housing market, particularly in Southern California. Great information, great insights. We really appreciate your time and just your great insights. Really, really helpful. And I hope the members who participated and who listened to this recording, which we will make available off of our website, at least maybe through some other venues. We really appreciate our members who took time to participate in this webcast. We welcome your feedback. We hope you found it valuable. And we'll also post, work with the team to figure out how we can address the questions we didn't get to, and work with Stephen and Michael so we can get some answers out to you. Again, for our members, we thank you for your time. We thank you for your membership. Thank you for your business. We know you have choices, and we really appreciate the fact that you've chosen Nuvision, and we're here to support you. Thanks so much. Everyone, have a great rest of your day.